Hello, hello, beautiful, sensitive ones. Welcome to Surviving to Thriving, where we address how to move from struggle and just surviving, feeling like it's just drudgery in a world that's too big, too fast, too busy, just too much. And we get to a place of calm so that we can actually thrive as highly sensing people. And I'm your host and sensory coach, Tammy Goen. And as always, I'm really glad to have you here so I can help as many women as possible to stop hiding and feeling wrong or bad or weird, to stop playing small and trying to be less sensitive, be a different person, but come to really honor their amazing, unique skills and talents and embrace the sensitive nature so that they can be gentle and yet strong forces in the world. All right. So this month is a little scattered. I'm just kind of jumping around different topics, but today I wanted to talk about business and careers, which is pretty impactful for everyone, but especially for highly sensing people. We have to look at it in a specific way so we can be prepared and manage everything. So I want to start first with, instead of a quote as I usually do, I'm going to actually read a story in a little while, but I want to talk about my journey in terms of being highly sensing in the working world. And if I go way, way back, as a kid, I knew that I wanted to do something in art or with numbers or with animals or people watching. And I know that sounds a little odd, but I was really fascinated by what people do. And I would try to figure out why, why do people do what they do? So ultimately that did help me. But those first three things I thought for sure, I was going to be an artist. And so I went to school in my first year in college thinking I was going to be an artist, an art major for sure. And I loved that. It really, really fed me. And then I took a fill-in class of psychology. And wow, that was really big. And then I took another one and another one. And then finally I realized it felt like my calling. What I really wanted to do was to be able to help people. And in this way, and it kind of pulled in that piece of being so fascinated about why people do what they do. And I wasn't going to be like a professional people watcher, but I would be able to use that sense and that urge in a way of actually really helping people. So all, fast forward, that would have all been really great if I had also been aware of the high sensitivity trait and what that meant. All the research for that was coming out during the time that I was in my master's program, actually. So I wasn't aware of the trait of high sensitivity. Of course, I always knew I was very, very sensitive, but I felt I was doing such a great thing by helping other people as a counselor. And that was the perfect thing for me. And then one day I woke up and hit complete burnout, and I just could not do it anymore. I made a bunch of changes. I managed for another couple years, but I just couldn't do it. It just was too much of a toll. It took too much of a toll on me energetically, emotionally, and I just hit that wall and I couldn't do it. And so it was really challenging for me to let go of that after all the money and the time and the energy that I'd put into my degree and all the people that I was helping. And I felt really guilty about walking away from those that I could have been helping and I was helping. And it took a while for me to hit that place of saying, if I'm not passionate about this anymore, then I'm not going to be a good helper, a good counselor. And so I did make a shift. And that's when I went into massage and energy work, which has been fabulous. And then eventually came full circle, wanting to get back into that emotional realm, but not in the same way I had done before. And that's when I ventured into coaching. But if I had known these things about myself as a highly sensing person and what that would entail relative to my chosen career path, I would have definitely made some different choices. I might have been totally fine doing what I was doing and just lasted much, much longer if I'd been aware. Or I might have said, oh, you know what, this might be too much for me. Or in my case, I think it was because of the clients that I was working with, which were all survivors of various forms of abuse, very, very intense emotional experiences. And so if I'd said, oh, I want to be a helper as a counselor, but maybe that's going to be a little too intense for me. Maybe I need to refine my client base and see what really would resonate for me. But as it went, I did not do that. And so I have made this great journey and, back into the coaching, the helping realm through coaching. But we can look at some of the issues that tend to come up with high sensitivity, relative to the workplace. And those things tend to be environment, boundaries, being able to speak our truth or not, expectations, everything involved in having a leadership role, management styles, morale, and even just overall emotion and energy overload. And so I'm going to break these down just a little bit. If we look at environment, there are some environments that are perfectly great for us as sensitives, whether that's working alone and in our own environment, or having a separate office, or being able to change lighting and things like that can be really helpful. But like an open office situation is a nightmare usually for most highly sensing people. There's just so much input coming all the time. And if there is no adjustability in lighting or sound or even temperature, sometimes those kind of things just need to be factored in terms of our success and satisfaction with our work. Sometimes there are things that we can change and sometimes there are not. So looking at, if we can look ahead of time and say, oh, what environment will I be in? Will this work for me? And then be able to make those decisions. So environment's important. We have boundaries. Boundaries are important for everyone, of course. But we tend to have a little more challenging time sticking with our boundaries or setting them or feeling okay about doing that. And we need to be able to do that and be able to set some parameters in our work. If we just are completely at everyone else's whim and we can't have any choices, that's probably going to be very challenging unless we just happen to pick the perfect scenario. And then speaking our truth is really, really important. And that can be a real challenge for us to say what it is that we're thinking, whether that's what we need or what we see in an environment, because we tend to have that ability to pick up those things in an environment and say, oh, this doesn't work for these people, and this would work better for these people. And for our business as a whole, or the company working well, requires all these things. But if we're not comfortable bringing that to the table, then we're going to sit in the back and go, I know what would be better. And it's not happening. And that's really frustrating. So being able to speak our truth in a way that we're heard is really, really important. Expectations are really big. If we have expectations for ourselves that are just not realistic, or if we have expectations of others that are not realistic, that's a big deal. But also, what are the expectations that we think others have of us, whether that's management or our colleagues, or just what our role, what our duties are. What is our expectation? Are we reasonable with that, or is there too much on our emotional plate for our expectations of how we need to be? And then we have generally, in terms of business in general, leadership role scenarios that can be really challenging for us if we are not feeling confident in who we are and speaking our truth and setting those boundaries. That can be challenging to be in a leadership position. And sometimes I've had clients say that I don't even know why I'm in this position anyway. I don't feel like I'm a leader. So we can struggle a little bit more with that idea of feeling like a fraud, or not understanding how we could possibly be a leader, because we do things completely different than those that we might see. So that can be a real challenge too. So if you're considering doing something where you would have a leadership position, what is that like for you? What are your expectations? And make sure that that's something that's top of mind and not just something that's holding you back. And then we have management styles. And of course, there's a whole variety of those. And oftentimes for us, the top down, this is the way it is, no room for discussion, is really challenging. But sometimes it's personality, sometimes it's the way we see other people being treated. There's a lot of different things that can affect us in terms of management styles, and that can definitely be tricky. Morale in general, since we tend to be so feeling oriented and concerned with other people and this situation, we can really get hit heavily by morale that's really low in the workplace, or if we see one or two particular people who are either not being treated well, or they're really struggling with things, and it's really apparent, to us, and maybe others are not aware or not taking it into account, and nothing's changing, that can be really, really draining. So being aware of, what's the scenario set up for being able to manage if something is off a little bit. Can you go and say, hey, I think this will work better, or I'm concerned about this person, or the way this is working is feeling really, really heavy for me. Can we make some changes? And then just in general, following up on that a little bit more, but other issues as well, the emotions and energy, and how that can just become a giant overload. Even if it seems like on the surface, if everyone say, oh, this business runs so well and everyone gets along, and it's all smooth, and yet for you that there's a lot of emotion happening and a lot of energy, because maybe there's so many people that are working, and maybe it's an open office type of situation, or maybe it's something where you're just interfacing with so many people every single day that energy gets to be so huge. It's really, really draining. So again, looking at all of those parameters of what your career is either currently, or if you're considering a shift, or if you're stepping out into the workplace and you're saying, okay, what do I want to do? Those are some things to consider and really take a good look at honestly. And so I talk about this all the time, about like paying attention to our inner wisdom and our intuition. When we have a question of something, being able to say, how is this really for me? Or if we're thinking ahead, saying, okay, I'm considering this job or this career, how will that be for me? And then think of all the different scenarios and really sit with that and try to let go of the, I know I should, or this would be really good if I did that. And yet it just doesn't feel like something that I can do. It's really important to be clear about that, because as I learned, I wasn't aware of that at the beginning, but had I known, I would have been able to make those changes so that eventually when I hit that burnout place, that might not have even happened. I might have been able to say, oh, okay, I need to watch this and shift this and refine some things. And then it might have worked out, much, much better. So as some examples, thinking of some clients that I worked with, over the years, I had a gal who would work for a company in a certain arena. Everything would be really going pretty well with the work, but she was always butting heads in terms of management, and she could only handle it so much, and then she just couldn't do it anymore, and then she would move on to another position, pretty much the same position, different company. So she'd done that a few times when she came to me, and was very frustrated by that, of course. And so over time, we were able to help her see how there are some things that we can change and some things that we can't. And of course, part of it is mindset of, okay, I can't change these things. How can I react to them or respond to them? How can I manage them? But then it's also really important to be able to, as she learned, to be able to say, oh, this is important for me to say or to do or to ask for. And so she learned how to work with that management of her current job, which was starting to have the same scenario where, like, I like the work, I love the people, but I can't manage the way everything is being run. It's just becoming toxic is what it felt like for her. But then she learned how to set boundaries and how to look at what was working and not working. And instead of sitting back and just being aware and frustrated, she learned to say, you know what, this is how I see things. This is what I'm noticing. What can we do about this? And then it made huge shifts. And she was able to eventually say, oh, I can make this work, because we were able to make these tweaks because I spoke up and I said no to certain things, because as is pretty often, common with highly sensing people, we can say yes to too many things and then feel overburdened and then feel, sad, guilty, whatever, if you let go of that, because that person's not going to get their needs met, or at least not in what you consider a timely manner. So letting go of those expectations and setting those boundaries and saying, oh, I really like to do that, but I can't do that right now. I have too much on my plate. So being able to do all those things, she was able to say, oh, wow, now I can keep doing the work that I really, really love and really feel I'm helping, because I know I get this great feedback, but I'm not butting heads all the time in management. And then I had, another client who comes up as I'm talking about this kind of stuff, who was in, an accounting business situation. And she'd already been dealing with some of the similar things that I was just talking about. But all of a sudden, she also found herself in charge of several other people. And that was really, really challenging for her because there were all these expectations and this need to be perfect. And what were other people going to be thinking? And if she said, made a decision that someone didn't like, someone's going to be disappointed or frustrated or upset. And that was really, really challenging for her. So in addition to the boundaries and, you know, speaking her truth and things like that, she was able to finally to recognize that she doesn't have to be perfect. No one has to be perfect. You can't expect everyone to be perfect, but for ourselves as well. And look at what it means to, you know, bring something to the table, take into consideration everyone's input, and then actually make a decision and stick with it, knowing that that's, you're doing your best. And so that is what it is, and not be feeling guilty because someone didn't like that. She was able to let go of that and really, it wasn't her comfort zone really to still be in charge. And if she'd had the choice, she would have said, I'm going to go back to the other way. But as it turns out, this wasn't a choice for her. So she was able to make those shifts and get to a place where she said, oh, okay, I can do this. So as long as we are prepared and we're looking in the right direction and we say, I can change this, I can't change this, but not sitting back and just saying, I want this to get better, but I'm not going to say anything, or I'm afraid I'm going to step on toes. Letting go of all of those things and recognizing that we have these amazing skills and benefits that we can use, but we have to be willing to bring them forward, as well as just being aware of what some of those, you know, potential things are. So it's really, really important to know yourself and what resonates. And when I think back to before I went to college, I know I took some of those, you know, career inventory kind of things. And I think I identified things that I was really interested in. I was so stuck on the art piece that's really what I focused on. And I didn't really consider too many of the pros and cons. I just wanted to do that. But as soon as I got into the psychology, it just, you know, kind of consumed me, took over. I was just so energized by it. And that's what I really wanted to do. But if I had known about my sensitivity as a trait, and then looked at some of those, okay, what things are involved in this? Then one, I might have said, well, okay, I'm aware, so I'm going to take care of myself in these ways. And also, when I consider who I'm going to be working with, I need to be aware of my sensitivity and my emotional responses, and probably, you know, not go the route that I did. So looking at what really resonates, and we really have to spend that time going in and asking ourselves, not like what it makes sense. I have this degree, I should be, you know, perfect at doing this, but saying, okay, yeah, I have these skills. What does it feel like if I consider doing this job or this career? And really being clear what does really resonate for us. So if I were to look back, and I've done this recently, and said, oh, if I were to do everything all over and I picked a different route, where would I likely be? And I think I would have been either a forest ranger or a librarian. That's because I so am connected with nature, and to just be out in nature all the time would be amazing. Of course, there'd be pieces of that, like being cold sometimes, that I wouldn't like. I'd have to be prepared for. And then as a librarian, I love reading. I love words and language, and then again, you know, helping people. And so very diverse looks or viewpoints, but I think those would have been really resonant for me as well. And of course, we change in some of our choices and desires as we get older, but recently, that's one of the things that I had noticed. I thought, oh, I think those two things would have fit really well for me. So anyway, if I'd been more aware back in the day, I probably would have made some changes. I probably still would have stuck with counseling or psychology in some way, but maybe I would have sat back and said, oh, maybe I'd be better off doing research and, you know, testing out these things or finding ways to help people without doing the direct one-on-one. Maybe I would have done that, and maybe that would have, you know, suited me better for a period of time, but without getting to that burnout place, you know, emotionally. Hard to say, but being aware and being prepared when we do say, oh, I want to do this, okay, what will that mean? And maybe even, you know, talking to other people that are in that field and say, what are the things I might not be aware of that are part of this job or this career or this business that I'm considering? and then making sure that all of that seems resonant for you, and you're not just coming from up here going, no, I should be able to do that. That's what anyone would do in my situation, we assume. And instead stepping back and really asking, what would this be for me? So I connected again recently with a friend, Marianne Lombardi. She's a career coach and she's wonderful. And she actually has a worksheet, a career awareness type worksheet that I've actually put the link to in the show notes. And that could be something that could be really helpful for you if you're considering, making a change in your career, or if you're kind of lost and feeling like you don't know what it is that you want to do, and that whatever you're doing is just not feeding you. That could be something that could be really helpful. So you might want to check that out and see, what are the pieces that are working, what are the pieces that are falling through the cracks, that why is this just not fulfilling for you? That could be a really good resource. Okay, so what I want to also bring up before we wrap up, and well, first I have a story to read to you, but one final idea on all of this is, especially for HSPs, being able to let go of pushing and needing to be not only different, but doing things in a certain way or looking a certain way to be successful, whatever that is, that we just feel like we're just pushed instead of saying, oh, this is what I want to do, or this is what feels okay, even though others are doing this, or I think I should do this, or someone has said I should. What really works for me, and letting go of that pushing, that need to push. So what I would like to do is read the story to you because I love it. It's The Businessman and the Fisherman. So maybe you've heard it before, but it just kind of puts that into perspective. One day, a fisherman was lying on a beautiful beach with his fishing pole propped up in the sand and his solitary line cast out into the sparkling blue surf. He was enjoying the warmth of the afternoon sun and the prospect of catching a fish. About that time, a businessman came walking down the beach, trying to relieve some of the stress of his workday. He noticed the fisherman sitting on the beach and decided to find out why this fisherman was fishing instead of working harder to make a living for himself and his family. You aren't going to catch many fish that way, said the businessman. You should be working rather than lying on the beach. The fisherman looked up at the businessman, smiled, and replied, and what would my reward be? Well, you can get a bigger net and catch more fish, was the businessman's answer. And then what will my reward be? Asked the fisherman, still smiling. The businessman replied, you will make money and you'll be able to buy a boat, which will then result in a larger catches of fish. And then what will my reward be? Asked the fisherman again. The businessman was beginning to get a little irritated with the fisherman's questions. You can buy a bigger boat and hire some people to work for you, he said. And then my reward will be, repeated the fisherman. The businessman was getting angry. Don't you understand? You can build up a fleet of fishing boats, sail all over the world, and let all your employees catch fish for you. And once again, the fisherman asked, excuse me, and then what will my reward be? The businessman was red with rage and shouted at the fisherman, don't you understand that you can become so rich that you will never have to work for your living again? You can spend all the rest of your days sitting on the beach looking at the sunset. You won't have a care in the world. And the fisherman, of course, still smiling, looked up and said, and what do you think I'm doing right now? So I love that. Love that story. I've read it a few times, and it just kind of brings to attention that idea that we don't have to do what we think we should or push if what we're doing is working or resonates, or if maybe the shift that we want to make is to let go of some of the expectations or to pick a different career that's less taxing in a certain way for us, and be able to step back and just not push or have these expectations of what success means and what we need to do for it. Sometimes it's letting go, not doing more. So I just love that story for that very reason. Well, it's as always great to have you here. I'm always appreciative of your time. And I hope if you have any more questions about high sensitivity, you will reach out and connect with me. and then follow up and take that inventory, that worksheet from my friend Marianne that I have in the show notes. If you're trying to figure out, is my career or my business, my job, what I really want, what really resonates for me, maybe it's time for a change, or maybe it's just a time for shifting our mindset on what it means to be in the role that we're in, and where we might be able to make some fine adjustments to make it resonate more. Maybe let go of a few things so we're not pushing, so much all the time. And then that can feel much lighter. So hopefully I will see you again next time. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Yeah.